Hi, welcome to Dreams Recycled podcast, inspiring stories of life after divorce, really, and how you recycle your lives in lots of positive, awesome ways. I'm very, very excited today to have our special guest, Leanne Linsky from Life, Laughter, Divorce, which is a fabulous title. Welcome, Leanne.
Thanks. Hi.
Hi. I was so excited to have you because you're like my kind of girl. You're recycled from your divorce, but you're also funny. Like, I feel like
Thanks.
divorced, you're not allowed to be funny, right? People don't want us to be funny. They want us to be all depressed and sitting on the sofa with Haagen-Dazs crying.
Instead, I'm sitting on the couch with Haagen-Dazs ice cream laughing.
Which is perfect. Which is your favorite? What's your favorite ice cream?
Oh, chocolate, always. Even if I go to 31 flavors, I will get chocolate every time.
You don't like it with all the chubby hubby, funky monkey stuff sticking out?
Nope. I don't need sprinkles. I don't need anything. I'm pretty simple. Chocolate is my thing. Yeah.
So let's start. So how many times have you been divorced? When was it? How did that happen? Not the details. We don't need to know that. But
Sure.
You've had a very interesting journey. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened to you after your divorce?
Sure. Well, I've actually been divorced twice. I was married back to back. I got married the first time when I was 22, divorced at 25, remarried at 27, and divorced again at 99. Or at 99. Sorry, at 29. Oh,
I was going to say.
That was a long marriage. Married for 70 years. Obviously lost my ability to do math in the process.
Well, I never had that ability. That's my weak point. But yeah.
So I was married twice, back to back. I was divorced the second time by the time I was 29.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been, unmarried ever since. I decided that from that point forward, I would just date. I didn't have to get married. I stopped it before it became a trend. But yeah, it's been interesting. It seems like I've lived about 9 lives since then,
I'm sure. So did you do like in my book, I mentioned this, and you and I have had a previous kind of interaction where I've mentioned this. So did you go crazy like I did and go on like 400 dates all at once? Or did you like take your time and analyze it and write like a, big whiteboard map of who you're going to date and why? Or did you just jump into it?
Well, after my first divorce, I ended up dating someone else right away, and I ended up marrying him. So after that ended,
I was going to say, and well, I advocate that you really don't take the first relationship after your very long marriage very seriously. So, So I guess you would say that maybe you are proof that that's not a good relationship. It's more like a rebound relationship, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, it probably wasn't the best decision, and at the time it seemed like the right one. Go figure.
Yeah.
So hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah, we live and learn, right?
Yeah. So after the second divorce, I absolutely agreed with you that, nope, I'm just going to date. I'm going to go out on a lot of dates. I'm going to learn to focus on myself and being on my own and being super independent that way, because I had always been before. So yeah, I would say take some time. I definitely had a lot to learn. So it probably would have been in my best interest not to jump into another marriage right away, but it seemed like the right thing. And he seemed like the right guy at the right time.
So you have a very interesting kind of take on how you should handle your divorce. Explain where Life, Laughter, Divorce came from and what exactly that is.
Sure. So what happened after my second divorce was I remember like, oh my gosh, how could this have happened twice? I did everything different. I picked a completely different type of man to marry. It was a completely different relationship. I lived with him first before I got married. Everything I tried to change the way I went into it. How could this have possibly happened again? And I remember, laying on the floor in the fetal position, crying, going, oh my gosh, you have those moments. Like, I just don't know what to do.
Well, and I was going to say, and that's a good point. We're allowed to have those moments, right? So,
absolutely. It's a grieving process,
well,
and
Go ahead.
Sorry. I can't deny that I felt bad. And, it's easy to be like, oh, I'm the tough girl and I just got back up and kept on going, which eventually I did. But I had to step back a little bit and reevaluate what I was doing and take an inventory and say, okay, obviously, I've been through 2 of these. I'm the common denominator. What role did I play? Not to say that they were perfect and they did everything right, but it takes
Right.
2. And what can I learn from this? And I remember, I was very sad ending a relationship of any kind. I think we go through some sort of grieving process. I think that's part of being human.
Of course it is. And it's okay, right? Because Dreams Recycled and I know Life, Laughter, Divorce, we both use humor and kind of positivity in what we do. And so sometimes people misread that, like you said, you're supposed to bounce out of bed and be like, okay, I've got this. I'm going to be awesome. I'm going to be Superwoman, Superman, and just be like, it's the best thing ever. But I know that, we don't believe that exactly. Everyone grieves. Everyone has their days of hopelessness and when they think that it just won't get better. But but I'm a big believer, and one of the reasons I like you so much, that using that positivity and humor can really kind of help you through even the darkest moments.
Absolutely. And that's absolutely right. Because what happened is when I was going through this process, I thought, I don't want this to define who I am.
Right. You don't want to get a tattoo that says I am a divorcee, right?
Right. This was an action I have taken in my life, but that action is one of millions of actions I've taken in my life. And I think sometimes when we have setbacks or quote failures, if you will, for lack of a better term, but it's what we do from that point forward that defines us, not that actual instance. And from that point forward, I remember laying there going, you know what? I refuse to become an old woman with 10 cats. Sorry to all the cat lovers out there. I'm allergic. But, I don't want to become a bitter old woman sitting by myself the rest of my life. I was young. I was only 29 when this happened. And I thought, I am going to take this as an opportunity to change my life. I'm going to do all the things that I never took time out for, in my 20s to do, because I was married that whole time and I compromised a lot, because that's what we do in relationships. We do make compromises. So I decided, I'm going to do things different. And fast forward, I think it was about a year or so later, I did a lot of public speaking and a lot of training and speaking in front of groups at work. And the people at work were, I always kept a sense of humor, and especially with my second divorce. And the reason that came about is I found it, number one, I come from a very funny family. Everything's always funny. Like, you can't have an argument without somebody finding something hilarious in the way you're yelling at them, So there's always something that relieves the tension that's that brings humor into it. And even in sad times, we always found a way to, have a good joke at a funeral. That sounds terrible. I know, but it's a tension relief.
Well, it's a tension relief, but I also think, like, you have to retain your sense of humor in every single one of life's adversities. It's one of the reasons why, as you said, laughing at a funeral is so hysterical, right? Because it's amplified when you're not really supposed to be finding humor in it. But I've obviously talked to a lot of divorcees doing what we do at Dreams Recycled, and I really have to say the more that you can kind of laugh at yourself and laugh at the situation. And as we said, it's not that it's funny and not serious. But, if you throw in a little sprinkling of laughter and smiling and, self-deprecating humor in there, I think that's much better off.
And what you said there is key. I ended up, so just a little bit of disclosure. My second husband and I worked together for a period of time during our marriage, and we had everybody at my work knew him. And when we split up,
not awkward at all, I'm sure.
Right, and so not only did they know him, they also knew his father, who also worked for our company. And it was a very big nationwide company. So my concern was, as much as, going through divorce can bring on anger and you want revenge and you want this or you want that, I thought long term, I'm like, I'm going to be at this company for a very long time. And the last thing I want to do is ruin somebody else. Like, that ain't right. It's not between him and the company. It's between him and I. And so I found humor to be my way of getting out of very awkward conversations at the water cooler, because inevitably you're going through a divorce. If anybody out there going through that right now, you probably know when you go to work, you're bombarded with, how are you doing today? So what happened? Did you talk to him? People hear, and they think they're being helpful. They're not. It's a weird place to be. And I always would find, if I made a joke, or if I had a witty comeback, not sarcastic, because my thing was, I also didn't want to hurt the person asking, because I had made that mistake a few times and I came off really bad. But to find a soft spot in there where if I could make light of it, it would ease the tension, and I could easily change the subject after we had a good laugh without divulging all of my inner secrets. So it kind of started from there. And going back to, I was doing a lot of speaking at work. People I worked with always had said, you have this sense of humor. Why aren't you taking comedy classes or something? And the more opportunity I had to be creative and stuff, fast forward, I ended up at the urging of one of our city presidents who is visiting our market. He said, my wife is an actor in LA, and she takes training sessions at Second City. Well, I was living in Vegas at the time. Yeah. And I started taking improv classes through Second City Training Center. And I ended up taking all of them that they offered, I think at least twice, some 3 times.
Very cool.
And from there, I ended up moving to New York City. And I ended up studying with UCB Theater. I ended up studying with Magnet Theater. I went to Improv Olympic in Chicago, which is now IO Chicago. So I spent time there, where I'm originally from. And I went back, and I was in resident ensembles in Magnet Theater in New York. And then I ended up teaching at Gotham City Improv. So yeah, it's been a long journey. I ran an open mic for 7 years in New York.
Oh, I bet that was fun, right?
Oh my gosh.
Blast.
Great. And it was a gift. This was, you get wedding gifts, you get divorce gifts. And this was a gift I was given. And a lot of as I evolved from basic improv and theater into a stand-up comic, my jokes all were based off of my relationships. Yeah. And one of the things that worked for me is not making fun of my exes, because that's easy.
I was going to say that's too easy
that's too easy of a target. And I think I don't think I'm a mean-spirited person. And, I think being mean and making jokes at them is not my intention. My intention is my experience and how I feel and what I know. And that's where my humor came from, is more self-deprecating. So when you said that, I'm like, yes, that resonates with me.
Yeah. You may be British, we're good at that.
Very, very good. And so, everything comes from about me and the choices I've made, and being able to laugh about that, and giving myself, as I write a joke, I have to break it down into like a scientific way of writing a joke, because there's a structure to it. And by doing so, it detaches me from the actual situation, and I'm able to look at it with a new perspective.
So, not to put you on the spot, what's your favorite divorce joke?
Oh, let's see. Well, it's just an easy one, because my set kind of goes through a storytelling thing, but my dad always laughs, and this is true. And so I have to credit him with this one, but he's like, I don't understand. He goes, I keep giving you away and they keep giving you back.
Oh, that is cute.
So just little things, Yeah, but I do have, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I always like the one with the t-shirt that says, why is divorce so expensive? Because it's worth it, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, my attorney that I used, because I was living at Vegas in the time, it makes sense, because when you're in Vegas, how can you not get married? Yeah. But when I went through my first divorce, when I went through my first divorce, I ended up getting an attorney, and it was amicable, and it cost us $500. That was it, $500. Oh, wow. Right? Yeah. And this is the benefits of getting married young and divorcing young. You don't have anything. So $500 will do the trick. Yeah. Well, when I went through my second divorce, I was still in Vegas. So I went back to the same attorney. I thought, hey, why not? maybe he'll give me a deal, 2 for or something.
2 for 1?
Right? No such luck. In fact, I went back and he actually doubled his price. It cost me $1,000 to get out of my second marriage. I'm like, man, what's the deal? It cost me only $500 last time. He's like, what do you mean, what's the deal? He goes, obviously you didn't learn anything.
So I'm teaching you a lesson. Yeah,
that's right. And then he sold me his dryer because I needed a new dryer. So
well, I hope you got a discount on that at least, right?
Yeah, a little bit. And I told him next time I come in, I said, I want to get one of those VIP cards that you punch, kind of like Jared at Subway. Well, maybe not Jared. That's not a good analogy.
No, I was going to say, we can't mention him anymore. I don't know what happened, but I really probably don't want to know what happened either.
No. His wife would be a good person to talk to.
Yeah.
Or his ex, I should say. Talk about divorce.
I know. I'm sure you've heard a lot of crazy divorce stories. I have too, and I think the most important thing to realize is probably no matter how bad you ever think your divorce is, there is always people who can top that.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm like, there's no winning the divorce game, you guys.
Yeah, no, you really can't, and it just baffles me sometimes the things I hear, but I do think that, as you said, it really is good to maintain your sense of humor and work through it and, laugh at yourself along the way a little bit. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I wanted to ask you, so going back to when you were standing by the cooler and had really awkward questions by your employees or employers or co-workers, because I was talking to somebody about this the other day. So why is it with divorce, do you think, that we're the only kind of adversity that you're allowed to go to that people want to know all the dirt and they want to know whose fault it is and take all, kind of shame you in the process when they're asking you about what happened? So what are your thoughts on that?
I think people just want to know that so they don't feel so bad about their own crappy relationship.
Well, you may be onto something with that.
No, I think there is just something about people who love a good bit of juicy gossip,
Right.
And oftentimes I find that, I don't, and especially now, I really don't like to gossip about other people's business, especially knowing how hurtful it can be.
Yeah.
But I think people do it because, it's like, why do people watch, certain reality shows, or why do people watch Jerry Springer,
No,
why they like to watch a train wreck. It's terrible to say, but there is something about it that people are just like, oh, wow, that's fascinating, until it happens to them. And then they're like, everybody leave me alone.
Well, that's the truth, right? It's always good, until it happens to them, and then it's completely different. And I've actually had people who since my divorce has come, have kind of reconnected with me and said, I'm so sorry. Like, I had no idea until, it happened to me. But so I think my next question, because this is also what I was talking about the other day, is what would your advice be to people who are not divorced, who have friends and family members getting divorced? How would you tell them to kind of talk to these people and deal with it? I actually think that conversation should not be kind of, as you said, like, how are you today? Like, oh, I feel so bad for you, like all this. I feel like people should be a lot more positive in their interaction with divorcees and say, instead of focusing on kind of the negative, focus on the positive. So be like, hey, I guess you're free to go out tonight. Why don't we go see a movie?
That's actually a really great question. I guess if you haven't experienced divorce yourself, there's not a way you can definitely empathize, but you probably don't have a full understanding about what it feels like. Mm. And I would say, if you're not sure what to say, treat a person going through a divorce or something as somebody who's lost someone's life, because it's a loss. Uh-huh. And would you go up to, somebody who just lost their spouse, their spouse just passed away, and be like, oh my gosh, so what happened? What was it like? You wouldn't ask for that. That would be morbid, right?
Yeah.
And I think
you wouldn't.
You wouldn't, and it would be inappropriate. And I think we all know that. And I think when we're dealing with somebody that's going through divorce, although the body is still warm and breathing and has a heartbeat, the person you're speaking to is extremely raw.
Yes.
And that emotion is very much on the surface. And one of the things now, especially if I meet somebody and they're going through it, even though I have gone through it, the last thing I want to find myself saying is, well, what you should do. The words, as soon as someone tells me what you should do, my whole body just like shakes. I'm like, please don't tell me what I have to do unless I specifically asked. Because for me, it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had a lot of, well, you should have, or you should, or this is what you need to do, rather than people saying, what do you need from me?
Yeah. And sometimes I think even that, like, I think you're right. I think like having people say, what can I do to help? That's nice. Obviously that's a helpful, nice thing. But I also think there's another level to that, whereas, you know, you're in that kind of grief stage, especially at the beginning, especially if you were blindsided or you didn't see it coming, which I speak to a lot of people who were just like in shock almost.
Yeah.
Everything else. And those people, I want to say, I think what people would find very helpful during that time is things that are practical. You know, if you see somebody having a bad day, maybe offer to pick up their kids from school and take them home for them.
Yeah.
If you know, somebody you see is upset that they're going to spend the holidays alone for the first time, or, you know, not have somewhere to go, don't even kind of make it an option or say, hey, you know, I know this is going on, but just be proactive in your friendship and your interaction with divorcees. And kind of say, you know, hey, Sally, you know, you're coming to Thanksgiving with us. This is what you're doing. Because I think a lot of times when you're going through divorce, you will retreat into this kind of cocoon kind of bubble where you kind of, you know, want to wallow in your own self-pity and not do things. So I think the more people who kind of are reaching out to you and kind of, you know, keeping you going and making plans. And I found a lot of the time that the most therapeutic thing was just talking to my friends and going out with them and going to a movie or whatever.
Yeah.
And not even talking about my divorce, just knowing people were there and, you know, listening to their stuff and having your mind kind of refocus away from that, even for, you know, an hour or two here or there.
Yep.
And so that's what I would say, you know, if you have a friend, just kind of kidnap them, take them somewhere.
I agree. I think those things are all really good. And just being there, being a friend, being a good friend to somebody is super helpful.
Yeah.
I think too, if people are listening and they know about your website and the forum that you offer, you know, saying, hey, if you want to talk to, you know, to a friend, like, hey, I heard about this forum where you can talk to other people going through the same experience that could probably really relate to you. Here's some information if you're interested, and I'll just leave that there, you know, and they can share that with them, because what you offer didn't exist when I was going through my divorce. I mean, nobody was, I mean, I didn't even have a cell phone then, so times have changed, but that's a fantastic place for people to interact and not have to leave their home. So if people are cocooning a bit, they can start peeking their head out by joining your forum and doing something like that. And that's why I'm actually going to be offering classes. And
very exciting.
Thank you. Yes, you can. I would love to have you. So I'm going to be offering classes that are online. I'll actually have some in person here in the Los Angeles area.
Very cool.
But I want to offer them online because I know there's people all over that could use a night out, but in your slippers, you know, it'll be on.
Fabulous idea.
Thanks. And I'm going to use basic improv comedy techniques on how to improve your communication during the divorce process so that you can have a little bit of humor. You can meet like-minded people and other people experiencing the same thing as you in the class. And it should be a good time.
That's very fun. So are you going to, so explain that a little bit more. So is this going to be like a online group where you're all audio kind of connected to each other and everyone can hear what each other says? Or is it a virtual group as in like a Facebook group, or like what's the format to that?
The format I believe I'm going to be using is what we're using right now to record this, actually, is Zoom. So it'll be via webinar, and you'll be on camera. So your shirt is required. No, just, as long as the camera is of shoulders and above, your pajama pants and slippers are fine. So that cool. Way, you could be online and have a couple hours of some fun and some good conversation.
And learn something in the process, right? Because that's really important, communication, because we're just not very good at it, are we? And especially not in times of adversity, stress, divorce. We really sometimes amplify our bad communication even more, I think.
Yes. It's easy to get into a negative space, and a couple hours of finding a different perspective and trying some new techniques and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I know that when I started taking my classes, and not everybody wants to go out and take an improv class or be an actor or do those things. Mm-hmm. That was my personal situation. But I realized at the same time how much doing those things helped me feel better.
Yeah. And with other divorces, because as we said, our friends, our married coupled friends, as good intentions as they may have, it isn't ever going to be the same as interacting with other divorcees who are going through the same thing as that you're going through at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that's a massive benefit. And then throw in a sprinkling of humor. That sounds like a winning combination to me.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm super excited. So I'll be posting some upcoming classes here in the next week or two, and that'll take place this summer.
Well, very cool. And if you're listening, if you go to Dreams Recycled, we will have the link to this podcast, and we'll have all the information for Leanne's classes afterwards also. So make sure you check back on our website often, and we'll update as Leanne adds more and more.
Thank you. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So you have had a long journey. You've been divorced for quite a long time now. So
yeah, since 99.
So, and I know, because I know a little bit more about you. So I know that you have a boyfriend.
I do. I sure do.
And so to all the divorcees listening, and the soon-to-be divorcees, or the maybe, recycled dreamers out there. So what do you think the most kind of telling thing, or the most important advice would you say is how did you grow, or what did you do over the last few 10 years was it to get to this place now where you seem like really super happy? And I obviously have been on your podcast with you and your boyfriend, and you seem like you have a great dynamic. So what steps did you take to find kind of your happier forever after now?
Thanks. Well, it took a lot of experimenting. We'll call them all test experiments. Yeah. What I did is, I think, it's kind of like when I got my first divorce, I thought I'm going to find someone completely different because I made a bad choice. I'm going to find a completely different kind of man. He's going to look different. He's going to talk different. He's going to behave different. But what wasn't different was me. Right. And so after my second divorce, I thought, boy, I probably need to, again, I was like, I'm going to go for a different type of person, and after I was dating, and I was like, there's some things in me I need to change. And I spent many years, I moved I was in Vegas for a long time, and then I moved to New York City. And that
I was going to say, in neither of those places I've heard are particularly good for dating, right?
No, they're not. Yeah. They're not. And I'm originally from the Midwest in Illinois, so outside of Chicago. So I went to Vegas, and that's not an easy place to have a relationship. I mean, wow, sure. Talk about some crazy competition and distractions. So family friendly, that's what they're calling it. So it's a whole different meaning to friendly.
I was going to say euphemism, I'm thinking.
Yes. It's a very friendly family. Mm-hmm. So in New York City, I spent so much time I became even more independent. I was pursuing my passions, my dreams. I loved it. I was like, well, what was I, I'm like reliving my 20s. But it was it was exciting, and I had relationships. It's not an easy place to date at all, because people in New York are not there on vacation. They're there to hustle. So they're there for a reason. But what I realized once I moved out to the West Coast is, and I really have spent a lot of my time out here focusing on, is making my own changes within myself. And that's not only in my lifestyle to find a better balance, but also to become a better communicator and being more honest with myself about my wants and my needs in a relationship. And to me, that's when the boyfriend came into the picture. And
isn't that interesting though? Like, as soon as you kind of worked on yourself and found yourself, then you attracted somebody healthier into your life, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I'm a big advocate of that. That's actually what I did for many years after my divorce, also just work on myself, which I think sometimes we don't want to do, because it's so much easier to be like, no, it's everyone else, it's not me, right? It's everyone else.
Yeah. And when and someone had said to me one time, why? Because I was like, I'm a magnet for all these jerks.
Yes, that was
because we get, we think, oh, these are all jerks. I'm such a magnet. Why do they come after me? And I'm like, wait a minute. Why are they attracted to me? It's like, wait a minute. What am I doing that's saying, hey, this is okay? And I had to realize I was giving the okay for that kind of behavior. And I was contributing to it. And once I stopped that, enter boyfriend, and he's been here. One of the things that makes this relationship so different from any other is communication.
Right, which is the key to everything, right? Whether it's work, relationships, family. If you do not figure out a way to communicate in a healthy way, you're not going to have good relationships, good success at your job or anything. It's just such an important thing to focus on.
It's incredibly huge, and every day that we're together, I'm kind of amazed and surprised. I'm like, wow, this is really going well, and communicating becomes so much easier as we practice it. But it is something we have to do every single day. And I realized not only do you have to do it with my relationship with a boyfriend, but I also have to do, and I am doing a better job with that in other areas of my life as well. And keeping the focus on myself and how I feel and where I'm coming from, versus you statements. A lot of us have, after we've gone through divorce, we hear about that, the you statements, the I've written statements versus you. But the other thing too is, remember when I think probably all of us have heard this when we got married is, people will give you advice, never go to bed angry.
Right. Yep.
I can't say that speaks volumes, because I don't think there's ever been a day that the boyfriend and I will end the day being angry at each other. If something comes up, we resolve it immediately,
which is lovely, because you've obviously found somebody who's on the same kind of trajectory as you are, and the same path. And I think this is the other problem too that I've had in relationships up until now since my divorce, that it's all very good and well to have this kind of chemistry with people, but if you're both not in the same place and on the same page, it really doesn't matter how much chemistry you have. It's not going to work out.
No, it's not. It's chemistry will only take you so far, and that's usually to bed. Outside of that, if you plan to live your entire life there, great, good for you. That could be nice, but chances are most of us don't. The majority of our life is spent outside of the bedroom, and we have to interact in other ways. And if you can't communicate, it probably won't work, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And also it can't ignore key values in life. That I also realized,
character counts, right? My thing has been dating with intent, and character counts.
Yes.
If you don't have basic, characteristics that you're looking for, then that also isn't going to end very well either for you or me.
So true. It's always, the nice guy always finishes last, right? Isn't that what they say? And that's a shame, because why wait? Like, why go through all these bad boys? There's a lot of us women, or even men probably, who have the bad boy syndrome, where it's like they're exciting and they're this and they're that. Well, you know what? They're also dangerous.
Yeah, they're also unhealthy, right? That's an
They can
unhealthy
be,
relationship.
yes.
The drama, like it's so nice to get off the drama and have kind of calmness. It's definitely is good.
Isn't it? And it's a change too, because it's like, wow, there's no drama in my life. It's like, what am I doing? You know, what happened? You know, it's so quiet, it's so peaceful, and for a while you wait for the other foot to shoot a drop, and it doesn't, and then it's like, should I drum up some drama? No, I probably shouldn't.
No, you should not.
No.
And I think, and I, like I said, I've spoke to a lot of divorcees, and it always fascinates me when people tell you their story, and the story often will start with, you know, X, Y, or Z. Well, I knew that because when we started dating, he or she did X, Y, and Z. And now this is kind of, you know, 10, 20 years later, they're phoning me about their divorce. And I'm saying, well, you know, is this behavior new or is this something new? And they're like, oh, no, they were always like this.
Yep. It's so true. I just had this conversation with someone the other day. And, you know, someone is not the same thoughts on, like, let's say religion. Well, if that's the most important thing in your life and it's not in theirs, and you have a chemistry today, but in 6 years from now, when that matters again, I mean, those things do come up. Politics, those things probably bigger now than ever, you know. It changes.
After the last election, I'm sure a lot of couples who went to bed angry.
And again, they're still angry or not, because, you know, society, you know, things change, the world changes, and the relationship has to be strong enough to evolve with that.
No, that is 100% true. And I was just like so excited to have you on this podcast, because you are, as I like to call us all who help divorcees, we are the helpers, right?
That's right.
And so I'm always super excited to connect with other people who go out of their way to help our community. And I think the way that you do it is very, very unique and interesting. And I applaud you for that. And I'm really grateful that you came on our podcast today.
Oh, this was awesome. I'm so flattered that you asked me. So thank you very much.
Yeah. So tell our listeners, how can they find you? Where are you on social media where they can connect with you? What's your website?
Sure. Well, you won't find me in a wedding chapel anytime soon, so you can cross that off your